Alrighty chaps, and welcome back. We are tackling a little task that I want to do to Project XB. You haven't seen this car in a while, mainly because I've been a little bit busy. So we're going to put a tow bar on this because the ultimate goal is I'm going to tow the guards and the grey motor stuff behind this all the way to Melbourne to give to Peter Anderson. That's my ultimate goal. I mean, if it all goes belly up, I'll probably just take the Commodore, but I ideally would love to road trip this, and I'm going to attempt it, road trip this all the way over there and do that. So today's task, I'm going to fit a tow bar to this, and then in the later half of this video I'm going to actually do some more on Peter's guards because I want to get that stuff, get the ball rolling on that. Now, you haven't seen much of this car. Remember the last update I did this, it was getting a new C4. It's in there, it's been in there for a while now. It does have a slight issue where it shifts really hard and takes a long time to change gears, like a long time. Is that a new dent, or did I clear over a dent? Who knows. And there's a fly, shoe fly. And I still got to get pop the bonnet. Still got to get the inlet manifold gaskets changed because it weeps out the front and out the back. Aside from that though, that motor is chatty, absolutely beautiful. Everything in here is going swimmingly except for that slight oil leak, but I mean, I consider that it's just sweating horsepower. That's right, that's all it's doing. But everything else is lovely. Something to be said about buying new parts, new air cleaner, new carby, basically a new engine, all the accessories are new radiator, water pump, fuel pump, all the good stuff. I think I've changed that fuel filter at least twice. I know it's had 2 oil changes since it was run in. I just wanted to baby it a little bit. Aftermarket mirror is starting to fade. Turns out you need to paint them. And of course, a bit of a shout out to JC Mechanical and El Jefe's Chop Shop. 2 awesome people. So here goes nothing. Now I did find a tow bar at home. It actually came off my brother's Landau. Even though the bumper bars look different, the basic frame of them is exactly the same. So in theory it should work, and there it is. It's not a brilliant tow bar, I'll give you that, but it is a tow bar. I will wheel it up a little bit and clean it, but we've got to get this bumper bar off. Interesting, I reckon. Oh, interesting. I believe the previous owner might have actually cut the tow bar that was already on this car off. So that'll be a fun one. We'll have to sift through that. But it is pretty straightforward. This one came off the other bar pretty easily. It was just 3 bolts either side. And it came out. So, look at that. No rust. So it should be just 2 bolts there, a nut and a bolt. In theory there should be a third one on the bottom, but I highly doubt they're actually in there. And then that should just unbolt and come off. But yes, we are working on the XB, so I'll give you an update in a second. So the suspicion that it did have a tow bar was correct, and there's the remnants of it there. Wow, that is some seriously thick-walled tube. No wonder that's good for towing. But in theory, that tow bar should be the same as this tow bar, so it should bolt in exactly the same way. But unfortunately, what I might do is actually completely dismantle this bar, wire wheel all the junk out of it, and just give it a bit of a tidy up while I'm at it. Not going to do a full tidy on it because, well, it needs to be done in the next 5 minutes. But I've got to get these old bits out and that one cleaned up and bolted on, and my word, these bumper bars are heavy with tow bars attached to them. Interesting, that's a little side bracket there, a little bolt on it. Interesting. Anyway, I will catch you up once I've done a little bit more. Okay, she's filthy. Not offensively bad. I mean, it hasn't rusted all the way through, but tell you what, if I didn't get onto it soon, it probably will. So I'll probably just give this a good clean, a bit of a scotchy. I might sandblast up a few brackets and bolts and things. Nothing extensive, just so they go back together a bit nicer. But yes, I tell you what, one way to get rid of some weight out of the bumper bars, you could just run that singular bracket on either side, and you would have taken an insane amount of weight out of the back of the car. For those who want to go drag racing or something like that, when the bumper bar is more ornamental than safety. But you know, that's quite a manageable weight now. It's probably only 10 kilos now rather than the 30 it once was. Oh, hello Mr. Spider, I'm going to squish you. But yes, the back of the XB looks pretty clean. There's a couple of spots where it's coming through, but not too bad. And I meant to show you before, but I didn't, I forgot to. We have been making some rust repair progress on the Landau, believe it or not. And I had started, if you follow my Graham's Restorations Facebook page, you would have seen it. But a bit of dirt out there. We got the quarter window blanket, which is over here. Yeah. Yummy. And I got this out of there, which goes in there. So I just cut ever so slightly larger, and that's a piece of galvanized steel, so that's two dissimilar metals in there, and it's not going to be they won't play well together. They cause a lot of corrosion, I think. And I was thinking about how it why they were so porous, and I'd say it's because the galvanized coating, when it was being welded, was actually ending up in the weld. So that's one thing, but problem solved. Copper sprayed on the back side, cleaned, copper sprayed on the inside, all good, new piece made up. I'll continue welding that on Moon Day and grind it down, and then fix this bit, which should be fairly straightforward. Hopefully that might actually grind out. If it does, that'll be fantastic, because it's not rusty anywhere else through there. Because normally you end up replacing this inside lip, and it wasn't bad through there either. I had to take a section of the roof off right here. And that off, and then that out. And I tell you what, they must have been having a field day with the spot welder when they put that blank in. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 spot welds in that one area. Probably 5 would have sufficed, you know, and maybe a couple up there. You didn't need nearly 20. But anyway, that's old cars for you. They're not built particularly well. So I'm going to get into this bumper bar in a second. I'm just skipping over some of the boring stuff, like grinding out all the surface rust and things like that, and disassembling it, because it's not that exciting. And maybe this video won't be super exciting, but I am tinkering with the XB and we're making progress. So yeah, I'll catch you up in a second. Now, for those of you playing at home, now remember, this is a rough one. I'm just cleaning it up, giving it a very light once over, wire wheeling the flaky stuff off, and then painting it black and going again. For those of you playing at home, and if you have to actually reassemble a bumper bar on one of these XA and B Falcons of varying body styles, I thought that these brackets, this guy, which is actually this guy as well, I thought they were the same. Apparently not. I have realise that there is actually a left and a right because of where that stud is. Well, that's actually a welded in nut, so like a nut set. So this is the one for this side and this is the one for that side. So easy, and other than that, they are identical. So this is the driver's side and this is the passenger side because, and I don't know how useful this information will ever be, but you know, you sometimes get these cars in piles of parts. So this goes through here like so, and you will notice that there is 2 nuts on that one spot, so you can't actually put that in there, so thusly proving that this is on the wrong side. So this needs to be over there, and this side without the 2 there need to be here. Useless trivia. I've also wire wheeled the bar, cleaned it up a bit, sprayed some anti-rust in there. It sort of worked and sort of didn't. It's not really intended for heavy rust like that. That really needs to be mechanically removed with like a wire wheel, like something decent. That spray deoxidine type stuff, that really is meant for surface rust, hence why all this stuff came off, but all the stuff that's really heavy, it can hardly even shift. So if you ever wonder why your heavy rust doesn't go away, it's because it's not meant to be taken off by that stuff. It's only meant for light stuff. But yes, carrying on quite nicely. Tow bar flaked up okay. It's a bit of a some of it's shonky, some of it's not. Somebody's welded an extra like tongue on the end of it, but it is quite secure, so I think it'll be okay for my road trip, if the car makes it. If not, I'll just go with the Commodore. So that's where we're up to. I've got to switch these brackets around and then lift this enormous girder back onto the car, and then we will do some guard work, eh? Alrighty, skipped a few steps with a bit of grunting and groaning, but the tow bar is on and mounted securely. About to head this home, and then I'll catch you up in the second part of this video where I work on Peter's guards tomorrow, which is over the weekend, and we'll get stuck into that. But this has turned out pretty good. What I want to do is cut this off because that's been added on, and find a tow bar tongue to actually go on the proper mount before I do my road trip. But at least I've got the tow bar in behind the bar and fitting nicely and secure. So yeah, I mean, if I find somebody who has a really Mickey Mouse right hand rear tail light, I'd be interested, because that one's perfect. Look at all that. That one's really red and really amber and really lovely, whereas this one's just starting to fade across the top and has got a crack running down there. So that's a heads up for anybody out there who's got parts. Please sing out if you've got a really good right hand tail light. I don't want one that's in that condition. I either want a really Mickey Mouse one or none at all. Says the guy who has a car with half the paint missing. But not bad. I'll leave it with this, leave this here, and we'll catch up on the guards in a second. Alrighty, so we're on a different camera now because some dope decided to forget his actual camera, so we're going to just tickle these up a bit more. Only needed to file it a bit more through here because it's still a bit of a dent through there. Most of that one is gone. Say goodbye. We're going to drill out those little holes there. There's not actually that much, it isn't actually overly warped through here, so we can just clean that up, make it pretty, and then just run a skim of filler over the top of it. Try and keep it to an absolute minimum, and then we can just start working on straightening up the guards. This one won't need much at all. It's already pretty darn flash. Now, I don't know how much of this I'm going to put into this video, because the main idea of the video was for the tow bar fitting, but what we can do is we can start doing a little bit of this and see if we can get this all filed out and pretty, and then we can move on to making it absolutely spiffy. I did actually get some of my grey motor stuff back yesterday, so that's going to be a few parts for Peter. I did send him a couple of photos. I think storage might be the biggest problem, but I'm sure he'll be able to suss it out. And yeah, he's going to have a challenge on his hands. Some of those motor parts are a bit sad, but you know, such is life. He likes a good challenge. So I'll catch you up once I've done a little bit more filing. Unfortunately, I can't set up a time lapse today because not only did I forget the camera, I forgot the stand and all the stuff with it. So, you know, we'll just have to catch up after I filed it a bit more. But basically what we're going to do is file it, find all the lows, tap them up, file it, tap them up, file it, tap it up until there's nothing left. And then we should have a very nice, or at least a very good panel for some primer. So catch up in a second. A little bit of progress, making good progress. That's gone. I've been using the dolly and the flipper, bowl of flipper to, I mean that one's looking a bit sad because, well, they do rust eventually when they're in the toolbox for a long time. So effectively what you do is you get this guy on the crown side, so like the high side, you sit him under it, and then you can, because I'm one-handed at the moment, you can just tap around for it gingerly till you can hear it, and then you want to aim for hitting just here, which is sort of there-ish on the flipper. Try and avoid smacking the ends into further down the panel, so you sort of want to aim with it kind of like that, because if you aim like that you'll probably put dents in it further up if you hit it wrong. And you tap it, you know, like that with a bit of force, and I'll just do that quickly and then catch up and I'll show you what you want to look for. Right, there we go, looking lovely. That's what you want to aim for. This thing zooms in killer, not bad for an old phone. So you can get a shrinker and a stretcher flipper. This is a stretcher because we're trying to bring it up. And on the dolly, I mean ideally the dolly could be cleaner, but you know, you get that on big jobs. So we just keep tapping around all the lows, keep filing, and then you should end up with something. And you got to cross hatch it, you know, make sure it's flat. It's not, I don't profess to be a metal finisher, but I was taught at trade school how to metal finish, and it is good to occasionally whip out the skills and just brush up on it. I'm not a magician when it comes to this. I just consider myself okay at it. I'm not a magician. I can just sort of get an okay job. So we'll keep on keeping on. So hopefully when I catch up in a second, I will have this whole sheet match done. And just to run through it again, file it, sand the paint off. Actually, realistically, you start again. You tap it around roughly, then you sand the paint off, or remove it one way or the other. Then you paint it with some black paint, and then you run a file over it to find all the lows, because you should have got it pretty close with your hammer and dolly before you took any paint off. And then you can tap it up, file it, and keep on keeping on till it's right, and then you should be able to just etch prime, high fill, and block and paint, in theory, if you got enough time up your sleeve. But I'm going to put a couple of good coats of high build primer on this and block it back and make it absolutely as well. I can only do as good as I can, so I'll try and do my best, and hope he's happy with it. But it is starting to come up pretty good, so we'll catch up in a second. Okay, I don't think that's too shabby, if I do say so myself. So after the filing, I then ran it over with, surprisingly, this is a super cheap branded Blackridge, cheap as all heck, sander, but it's set to, because it's got this little knob on the bottom, you can twist it, and it will set it from oscillate to just rotate. So I have them set to rotate, so I can effectively with an 80 grit machine out the file marks, because the blades do leave file marks in the steel, so you've got to get them out. And 80 grit I found to be the best happy medium to do that. And then once I've done that, I've gone over with this guy, which is an Orbital palm sander. Awesome machine. If you haven't got one, I strongly recommend you go buy one. Many different brands. And just 80 gritted it again, and that gets rid of all that, and that's perfect for etch primer, high build, and then onward and upward. So we're going to put a couple of coats, good heavy coats of high build primer on this, just to see if I can whittle out any more imperfections that I may have missed, because I am not perfect. I never profess to be. I'm only okay. So we've just noticed there's a few extra coats of paint here. Interesting, it sort of blends through here, right through there. Interesting stuff. So that means there's going to be extra coats of paint through there, which will be fun to remove, because I hate acrylic. I don't hate it because it gives you, it gives you an okay finish. The reason I dislike acrylic paints is because it tends to turn to, like, if you paint strip with paint stripper acrylic paint, it doesn't fry up like 2-pack does or any other stuff. It just turns to mush and it makes an insane mess. Like, it turns back to a liquid almost, and it's awful to try and get off. And I've found my preferred method to getting it off is actually sanding it off with 80 grit, and you've got to run it relatively slowly because, once again, if you go too fast, it just turns it to a paste and just clogs up the paper. So it's the removing of acrylic is why I'm not a fan of it, if that makes any sense. Also, if you paint something in 2-pack, it usually stays shiny for, well, ever, with no polishing. So over here, this bonnet, I painted in 2-pack with direct gloss. That's off the gun, and that was painted months and months and months ago, and is, albeit really filthy, but dead shiny, and it will stay like that forever. Well, until it cops enough abuse that it starts failing, but it'll be a long time before that happens. Acrylic just won't last the same amount of time. And obviously, acrylic's a lot better for the environment. That's got isocyanates and all sorts of bad stuff in it, which is why most modern crash shops these days are going to water-based paint again, but another type which is environmentally friendly. So, little trivia you may never need to know. Now, with this, I'll run you through the repair process. I used a set. Yeah, a set of what, Graham, you ask? No, it's a set. All my drawer of goodies. This guy. I think it's actually initially for tiling, but I rounded the edges years ago. It's flat through the middle, but rounded on the edges, and not the most expensive one out there. The reason I rounded the edges, though, is if you were to hit it dead center, it's going to rock like that. But if it's dead flat, no human is perfect, and the chances are of you sending a pretty good imprint into the side of it is very high. So that's why you round it, so that it's never going to dig in, and you've got to hit it with a good sized hammer too. So what I did was, I got to really get a better camera and stuff like that, but one day when I have money. So I cleaned off the inside of this panel, like back to bare metal, and then I got a steel ruler over that's 1 meter long, and I put it on the style line from either end and scribed a straight line, which obviously followed the style line because it is actually a straight line. And then I ran the set along there, and that pulled the style line back up. And then I used a hammer and dolly, because it was actually, I'm having a hard time remembering exactly where the dent was because it's gone now, but it had a good crease that ran sort of in a bit of a love heart kind of shape, because it's obviously gone in soft and then got harder and harder until somebody realised they were hitting something. So going backwards here, clean off the inside, scribe a straight line for where the style line is, which is the most important line, hammer that out, and this is before you take any paint off either. So hammer that out, tap up your dents, because the shine of the panel will help you see if you're getting close. Plus, if you take the paint off while it's still dented, there's a chance that you'll make it thinner where all the high spots are. So you want to get it really close before you take the paint off. And then you take the paint off, and then you can obviously spray it black, file it, hammer and dolly a little bit, use the hammer and flipper, get all the lows, and then file it up and then run it over one of these and then one of these, and you'll end up with that if you have enough patience. So that's how we got to where we are. I'm going to throw some etch on that once I sand that, and then we should be, as I like to say, giggling like schoolgirls, and then I will get stuck back into customers' cars. But that isn't offensive in my opinion. Not too shabby. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. A little bit of tow bar, a little bit of dent removal. Possibly not the most exciting episode, but you never know. And apologise for the loss of a camera. I didn't bring it, and I'm a bit stupid for that bit. But well, you win some, lose some. So we'll get cracking on something else, and catch you up on the next one.